A while back, I shot a video and I shared it, and the name of the video was Start Somewhere. And in that video, I talked about the importance of going ahead and getting started on whatever that goal or that ambition is. And I got a lot of feedback about, well, then how do you do it? What kinds of things can I do if I choose to start in a small way? So I've decided to devote this entire week on a series that I call the S.I.M.B.A series, because I believe there are really 5 key things that can drive and influence your ability to actually start somewhere. First of all, you have to understand the importance of sacrifice. You have to sacrifice some things. You also have to take into consideration the importance of investing. You have to invest in yourself. You have to take into consideration the importance of having a mentor or 3. Someone has to give you guidance, ideally someone who's been there and done that, or someone who has a broad understanding of the space you're trying to operate in. And then, of course, there's the idea of making sure that you benchmark, you understand what is happening in that space you're trying to penetrate so that you can be positioned to be effective and actually have impact in that arena. And then last but not least, you have to understand the importance of awareness, self-awareness. Know your limitations, know your strengths, but more importantly, know your opportunity areas more intimately. So let's talk about sacrifice. Oftentimes, we have a lot more time in the day than I think we realize we do. And if you have a particular ambition or goal that you're after, you have to decide, if you're not going to change anything, if you're not going to quit your job or leave your family or do something crazy that just suddenly creates an abundant amount of time, it's going to be important that you look at that day's activities and figure out how you'll carve time out to actually put something into what it is that you're going after. It could be Sunday afternoons, it could be an impact on your social life, or the time you spend in the evening, maybe socializing with friends, and sometimes it might be a little bit of family time. But whatever works for you is what works for you, but it's important that you realize you're gonna have to sacrifice some things, at least in the beginning, in order to get things rolling. And I shared a comment a couple of weeks ago about how the smallest time, 1 hour a week, after an entire month, you've devoted 4 hours to whatever that effort is. Realize that all the time that you sacrifice will add up and will actually have an impact on you moving the needle towards what it is that you're going after. So consider where you may have time to carve out so that you can make the sacrifice, because you can accomplish those goals. You can go after those things that you've been wanting to do, that you've been talking about doing, if you're willing to make at least one step, and one of those steps is to sacrifice. So let's talk about investment. If you're going to get out there and do something that is really in your dream or your passion or your desires, you've got to be willing to make the investment. You've got to be willing to take that time that we talked about yesterday, but also take things that will allow you to get closer to reaching that particular goal. It could be dollars and cents to register for a conference, or to get a particular certification, or to take a certain class, or to go after a certain degree. The other side of it is that realize that not all investment is necessarily financial. Not all investment is necessarily financial. There are other things that you can do in investing in yourself. It could be carving time out. It can be time related. It could be making certain sacrifices, similar to what we talked about yesterday. But realize that you've got to put this idea or this dream or this ambition on a pedestal, and you've got to figure out a way to make a level of investment to make sure it gets the momentum that it needs to get to where it's going. There's nothing I hate more than when people have a really great idea, when people have a clear talent to be able to execute on that idea, but they don't actually realize that they have to make a level of investment. Something as simple as a website, something as simple as a social media platform, things that don't necessarily cost you money, but these things are investments that can really help you move the needle, really get you to where you're moving in a direction that's consistent with your goals and your dreams and your ambitions. So let's talk about one of the other things you need to do in order to start somewhere. You have got to identify a mentor or 3. Notice I said a mentor or 3. No one person can be the end-all, be-all guide for anything that each of us wants to do. The truth of the matter is you want to get multiple opinions. You want those opinions to be data and information that help influence whatever you decide to digest and finally come to a conclusion. The worst mistake we can make, and I see people do this all the time with mentors, is to think that a mentor is supposed to tell you what to do or supposed to guide you literally in what you're doing. Nope, a mentor is supposed to provide you with advice and guidance, but ultimately you take that advice, you take that guidance, you do a little research, a little benchmarking, you talk to people who are actually operating, and somewhere in the midst of all of that awesome feedback, you come to a conclusion. And a good mentor will never, ever tell you what to do. A good mentor is going to always listen, provide you feedback, offer you guidance, and give you support when you choose to move forward in the direction that you go after. It's important that you have a mentor or three as you go after your goals and your ambition. Benchmarking. There are very few instances where any of us are going to invent something completely new and start doing something that no one else is doing on the planet Earth. In this modern day of technology, you can find information and activities that are happening literally all over the world. And so it's important for you to take the time to benchmark and try to figure out who is out there doing a piece of or all of what I want to do. The value of benchmarking is you get a chance to see what people are doing, how they're doing it. You can even see the impact of whatever it is that they're doing. Now, don't get benchmarking confused with cutting and pasting or copying and pasting. Yes, there'll be some things that you pull in your benchmark process that will go directly over to your business or your opportunity or your idea. But the truth of the matter is you have to benchmark to learn, and then you create a molding around that learning that makes it authentically yours, that makes it customized for your target audience, that makes it meaningful for your personal objectives and goals, with a balancing factor of considering all the alternatives and or things that are happening in that space. So don't underestimate the value and importance of benchmarking. You know, when I talk to people and they have their goals and their ambitions, what I realize is that oftentimes the area that we struggle with the most is this idea of awareness, specifically self-awareness. You have to know your own limitations. You have to know what is in your toolkit. And when I say it's in your toolkit, not that you took a class in it or that you have a degree in it, but you actually know it and understand it, and it is in your toolkit. But just as well as you need to know what's in your toolkit, you need to know from benchmarking what's not in your toolkit, but that's critical for you to actually successfully go after that endeavor. That's the research side of things. Through the benchmarking process, you're going to understand that holistically. And then now your job and your goal is to try to figure out how to supplement those gaps. And it may not happen overnight, but over time you'll realize I need to get someone who's better at this than me. I need to get someone who has this skill set, or I need to outsource this particular function because there's no way I can do it all because it's not in my toolkit, it's not in my wheelhouse, it's not something that comes naturally or easily to me. When you choose to be self-aware, you will surprise yourself as to how impactful that can be in shaping ultimately this awesome idea, goal, dream, or ambition that you have set forth for yourself. So my hope and my desire is that this has had a meaningful end result in terms of having a multi-part series kind of focused on one thing. But I want to go back to the beginning, and the beginning message is start somewhere. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I promise you, you can begin today. You can make a little sacrifice, you can do some benchmarking, find yourself some mentors, become self-aware of where you stand and where you don't stand, and more importantly, you can achieve small distances that ultimately lead to you reaching that final goal if you start somewhere and take some of those elements into consideration.